Hello, everyone. This is Professor DePaulo welcoming you back to Psych 265 Online. And today I'm going to review how to write the introduction of your APA manuscript. Okay, so as I said towards the beginning of the course, we're looking at social connectedness and how it relates to a variety of items, both psychological and academic. And so I've designed this for you as a study that tests 5 distinct hypotheses. So when we're writing the introduction of the manuscript, we need to provide sort of the background of why we're doing the study that we're doing and sort of what we're looking at, what's called the literature review. So this is approximately 3 pages in length, double-spaced. You can go over 3 pages. I mean, I wouldn't want, say, like 10 pages. But if you go over a little bit over 3 pages to try to get what you need to get in there, it's fine. And definitely not anything shorter than 3 pages. So approximately 3 pages in length, double-spaced. And it's going to consist of 8 paragraphs. That's all I want is 8 paragraphs. The first 2 paragraphs are defining the problem. So the problem we're studying, which is social connectedness and its relationship to mental health, physical health, and academic performance. And that's the study we're doing this semester. And why is it important? So you're going to give me 2 paragraphs about, why you think social connectedness is important to study. And there's a lot of reasons to talk about in terms of the importance of it. And, recently we saw the pandemic, which was long and difficult for all of us. And it was during the pandemic that social connectedness kind of dissolved, right? There wasn't much going on. Everybody was on Zoom, and we're still on Zoom, right? But everybody was on Zoom. No one was going to the office. No one was going to school. And we failed to make these connections. And that could lead to problems later in life, especially among your cohort, right? So if you were in grade school or high school during the pandemic, it's difficult because we need social connections. We need to feel like we're connected to other people. We derive, our good moods, our motivations from being connected to other people. A lot of times it's very difficult to live an isolated existence. Humans are not meant for that, right? Humans are social animals. So that was a problem. That sort of explains why studying social connectedness is important, is because we've been going through a time with very limited social connectedness. So in these first 2 paragraphs, you want to talk about that. You can talk about the pandemic. You can talk about how it's influenced or decreased social connectedness. You can talk about struggles, with students connecting. Now, you do not want to make this personal because this is a manuscript. So you cannot put your own experiences in here. You can't say, I struggled during the pandemic. I lack social connections, and it really, that might be true and that might be interesting, but this is not a blog. This is a scientific manuscript. So do not give personal examples, right? References. My friend had this happen and this is why it's important. No, your friend, your family, that's all great, but we don't want to talk about that. We want to talk about the society, the role that social connectedness played in society and the problems of the pandemic. Now, you don't need to cite any research in the first 2 paragraphs, any studies. You can if you want, but you don't have to. But it's got to be about why we're studying social connectedness and why it's important and not anecdotal. So those are the first 2 paragraphs. Paragraphs 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 are the literature review. Each paragraph represents one article that you find. And one article represents one study based on one hypothesis. So there are 5 hypotheses. There's a positive correlation between social connectedness and life satisfaction. There's a negative correlation between social connectedness and anxiety and depression. There's a negative correlation between social connectedness and somatization. Academic performance, i.e. GPA, is positively correlated with social connectedness, and social connectedness is negatively correlated with stress. So these are 5 hypotheses we're testing. You cannot test your own hypotheses. I'm collecting data already from the surveys that you're filling out online. And that data is going to be part of the study that we're writing up. Each of these hypotheses, you need to go out into Google Scholar or PsycInfo and find an article that talks about each of these 5 hypotheses. So that's a total of 5 articles. You then need to write a 1-paragraph summary for each of those 5 articles, and that's going to be your literature review. So 5 articles, 1 paragraph for each, summary, with paraphrasing, right? Do not copy, paraphrase, and cite. You need to cite the article you're referring to. And citation style is author, year. So paraphrase and then cite. Now, if you want to cite at the beginning, that's fine at the paragraph. If you want to cite at the end of the paragraph, okay. I prefer more towards the beginning. You're going to write like a couple sentences and then cite. And that's going to be, your 1-paragraph summary of that article. So I'm keeping it very simple here. The first 2 paragraphs, general introduction to the topic, why is it important to study social connectedness. You do not need to cite the first 2 paragraphs. Paragraphs 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, you need to cite 1 article per paragraph. So, for example, the first hypothesis, positive correlation between social connectedness and life satisfaction. Let's see if we can find an article here. Let's try Google Scholar first. So we are looking at social connectedness and life satisfaction. Now I have articles. So you see where it says PDF here? That means I can access it for free. Do not pay for anything. There are plenty of articles that are free. Do not pay $30 or $40 for an article that you want online. Do not do this. Just click on one of the free articles. So this one's about migration and refugees, which is not exactly what we're talking about, but we're talking about social connectedness. So you would see problems with social connectedness among, refugees. So that could be very interesting. If you think this is interesting, click on it and read the abstract. Here's the abstract. Read it. If you think that this is something you want to summarize, that it's relevant to the study, right, then you're going to read the whole article and then summarize it in 1 paragraph and cite it. So this is looking at 43 studies. So this is a review article, which is okay. It's not the greatest. I'm not really a huge fan of review articles. But what did they find here? I don't even know what they found here. It's not even in the abstract. But if this is something you think you might want to look at, this is kind of like a meta-analysis, but it's a review article. Let's see what kind of data they found. I'm just scrolling through this to see what they found. Because it wasn't all in the abstract. It should be in the abstract. So lack of social support is associated with adverse mental health, including depression, stress, and PTSD. Right? So that's kind of what we expect. Anxiety and depression here is linked to lack of social support or social connectedness. This is talking about ethnic support. We're not really looking at ethnicity here, but we're looking at this stuff. So there's enough here to use this article if you wanted to use it. I'm not a huge fan of all the survey of the review articles, but you could use it. So if you want to use that one, fine. If you want to use something else, fine. Here's one: social connectedness is a source of consequence and meaning in life. Once again, read the abstract. If the abstract is interesting and relevant, then you can read the article. And when you read the article, You want to focus on the introduction, the method, the discussion. Do not get bogged down in the results because there might be a lot of statistics in there. It's not worth getting bogged down there. So this found, all right. So this is talking about being married and life satisfaction. So that's your ultimate social connectedness. If you're happily married, obviously. If you're unhappily married, then it probably has a negative impact on your mental health and physical health. But if you're happily married, you're very connected, right? And that's social connectedness, right? But there's other forms of connectedness, like academic connectedness. Do you feel like you fit in with, at the college you're at? Do you feel like you have a good relationship with your professors, with your instructors, etc.? So that might be something worth looking at. You got other articles here that are also free if you want to look through them. You can also look in PsycInfo. So this is Google Scholar. Do not use regular Google. Regular Google will get you a bunch of garbage. To get articles, peer-reviewed journal articles, Google Scholar is important to use. If you don't want to use Google Scholar, you can use PsycInfo. So PsycInfo, you're going to go to the BMCC page, and we're going to go to library. Where's library up here? Library, right at the top. You're going to go into library. You're going to go into databases. And complete list of databases. And we want PsycInfo. So here's Psych articles. So you can use Psych articles or PsycInfo. I tend to use PsycInfo. I think it has a little bit more. But you can use Psych articles too. Well, I'll click on PsycInfo. CUNY login. So you need your login for, your CUNY first and all that login. It brings you here, and you can now do a search here. So let's see what else we're looking at. Hypothesis 2. Negative correlation between social connectedness, anxiety, and depression. So I'm going to look at anxiety first. Now, you don't really want to use a dissertation because a dissertation is published and it is, reviewed by the committee, but it's not a journal article. It's a dissertation. So I would avoid dissertations and look for peer-reviewed journals because those are the best. Because the peer review is a pretty rigorous process. That's what you're doing. By writing up this manuscript, you're engaging in part of the peer review process. Now, I am the editor or reviewer of the journal because you're submitting it to me. And I'm kind of simulating what the process is like. I do the same thing. So when I submit my articles, I submit them to a journal, and there's usually a panel of 3 people that reviews it. And then they send back all their complaints and things they want fixed. So that's the same situation you're in. So I'm the editor in your case. And when I submit to the journal, I'm the student when I'm submitting to the journal. Because they come down pretty hard a lot of times. Sometimes they got a lot of complaints. And you got to make the changes or they will not. There's a couple of ways they go about it. If they like the article that you're submitting, the manuscript, they'll still have a lot of complaints, but they'll let you fix it. If they really don't like what you submitted, they won't even they'll give you the list of errors or things they want you to fix, but they won't let you resubmit it. And you got to submit it somewhere else. So you've been rejected, basically. Now, that's not going to happen in this class. Everyone that will submit their work, and I will give you helpful feedback. And based on my feedback, you will revise, and then you will resubmit the entire manuscript at the end of the semester. So we're kind of introducing you to life as a researcher. Except that I'm a much easier reviewer or editor than in the real world, right? So here's anxiety, uh, self-compassion, social connectedness. Here's social media use. That's a dissertation now. So there's a lot of different ones here. Let's click on this one. That'll bring up the abstract. You want to read the abstract here. Let's see what they found. Teaching people with anxiety and depression strategies to increase positive thoughts, behaviors, and emotions, enhance brain regions that govern social reward processing, and promote social connectedness. So this is kind of like dealing with people that have anxiety. You want them to do cognitive behavioral therapy, basically. Is it related to our study? So. Let's see what else we have here. This is about COVID, so this is more related to what we're talking about here. Anxiety and depression increased during the quarantine, which is just what I said. So increasing anxiety and depression with social connectedness as risk factors. So they're basically saying that the pandemic really crushed the social connectedness. So you weren't able to see people. And as a result, you develop more anxiety and depression. So that's a very relevant article. But you can pick out whatever article you think is relevant, at least somewhat connected to the hypothesis you're testing. So that's a minimum of 5 articles, 1 article per hypothesis. So you're going to write those 5 articles, those 5 paragraphs here. Each paragraph is connected to one hypothesis of the 5. So paragraph 3 is going to be hypothesis 1. Paragraph 4 is going to be hypothesis 2. Paragraph 5 is going to be paragraph 5 is going to be hypothesis 3. Paragraph 4 is going to be hypothesis 4. And paragraph 5 is going to be hypothesis, I got that all mixed up. Paragraph 3 is going to be hypothesis 1. Paragraph 4, hypothesis 2. Paragraph 5, hypothesis 3. Paragraph 6, hypothesis 4. Paragraph 7, hypothesis 5. You're going to give a one solid paragraph, not small paragraph, one solid paragraph summarizing and paraphrased, summarizing the general idea of the article and the conclusions. Paraphrase, similar to what you did with discussion board 2, right? And then you're going to cite. Now, citing is simply parentheses, author, comma, year, right? So let's look at that. Let's look at citation. So you write your paraphrase, and then you're going to put like this, Smith, 2024. And that's going to be your paraphrase. Now you can put that after the first sentence, or you could put that at the end. Right? It doesn't really matter. But you need to cite your research, where you got the information. Even if you paraphrase, you need to cite it. So you did the practice paraphrasing at the beginning of the course. Now you're going to bring that in, and you're going to start citing it. Author, comma, year. Now the last paragraph, paragraph 8, is only going to be these 5 hypotheses. Just put these hypotheses together in one paragraph. And that is your paragraph 8. You don't have to do anything. All you have to do is put these individual hypotheses into one paragraph. And that's it. And there's your 8-paragraph introduction. Should be about 3 pages, could be 4 pages, could be 5 pages, right? Depending on how much you want to write. Should not be 10 pages, should not be anything less than 3 pages. Double space, 1-inch margins. You don't have to put your name on it, obviously, because it's all submitted online. Now, is there a title? Do you want to write introduction? For now, you could just write introduction at the top. For now. When you submit the manuscript full title will replace the word introduction. So for now, we can just write introduction if you want. Actually, I wouldn't put it in the header because the header will put it on every page. So don't put it in the header. So introduction, you can center it, right? And you can start below it. Okay? Now, come the final manuscript, you're going to replace the word introduction with the full title. So this will be replaced with the full title of the manuscript. Since we don't have a title yet of the manuscript, that's the last thing we're doing. We're just going to write the word introduction for now at the top. Full title of manuscript will replace that when you hand in the final paper. And that's pretty much it. I'm trying to make this as simple as possible. So the first 2 paragraphs define the problem. The problem is social connectedness. Why is it important to study? What is it? Why is it important to study? You do not need to cite research for the first 2 paragraphs. Give me 2 solid paragraphs. What is social connectedness? Why is it important? I talked about why it's important because of the pandemic. And that's kind of the lens where I'm interested in social connectedness. It's mainly because I'm interested in the pandemic. Even though the pandemic was terrible, a nightmare, I kind of am interested, because I'm a health psychologist, I'm interested in sort of the effect of the pandemic on society. Psychologically, too. Physically, psychologically. It was a very difficult time. It's not necessarily over. It's become, endemic now. Not the pandemic, it's become endemic, which means it's it's like kind of like the flu now. COVID. It's always going to be here. It's never going away. But those years of the pandemic really screwed, in my opinion, really screwed things up. Like, people are struggling post-pandemic. Not just physically with like long COVID and all that stuff, but mentally. And it affects children's development or young adults' development by not being in school, by living this kind of cloistered lifestyle, which is the opposite of what a lot of young adults and teenagers and young children live. Young children and teenagers are not used to, being told to stay in their room or stay in the house, stay in their apartment and not leave. So how did that affect them moving forward? Years later, we won't know fully how it affected this cohort until 5 or 10 years down the line. But I can start seeing trends and problems, from the pandemic that's affecting younger people. Affects older people too, but older people are older people. They're not as vulnerable unless they're really elderly. And younger people are very vulnerable to a massive lifestyle change or change in society. So there's a lot of reasons why it's important to study social connectedness. Not just, you have friends, you have romantic partners, you have connection with your parents, your family, and then you have connection with students, your peers. So all this is important. So that's the first 2 paragraphs. Do not need to cite. Paragraphs 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Each of these paragraphs is about an article related to one of these 5 hypotheses. Go find an article for each of these 5 hypotheses. Go summarize that article in 1 paragraph, 1 solid paragraph, paraphrase and cite, author, year. Right? So paragraph 3 is hypothesis 1, paragraph 4 is hypothesis 2, paragraph 5 is hypothesis 3, paragraph 6 is hypothesis 4, paragraph 7 is hypothesis 5. 5 hypotheses, 5 articles, 5 paragraph summaries. And make sure you cite a minimum of 5 times. And then paragraph 8, all you're doing is taking these hypotheses and putting them into a paragraph form. 1 solid paragraph, and that's it. You don't have to add anything to it. And you're done. Now, is this a professional introduction that I look? It's sort of a bare bones introduction. As you get more experience, you can make the introduction more creative in different ways. But for just learning out how to write the manuscript, it's a pretty basic template to follow, and it makes a lot of sense because you're providing the rationale for the study, and then you're providing the literature review for the study. Obviously, you'd want more art. If it was a real manuscript, you'd want more articles. You wouldn't just want to write summaries. You would then tie in themes together. It'd be a little bit different, but just starting out, this is a pretty good way to go about it. And it's going to help your writing. This kind of writing is different than the writing you're used to in other classes. So manuscript writing is, like I said, it's got to be scientific. It cannot be anecdotal. I do not want to see I or we or our, right? I, we, and our, this is for a blog. That might be for your English class. I don't even know if they even want that, but I don't want that. I do not want anecdotes. I do not want, I have a friend. I do not want any of that. This is going to be scientific manuscript, so it's going to be cut and dry. So no I, no we, no our. And I think that's pretty much most of what I want to say. Spend some time on it. Make an effort. If you have questions, let me know. You have a little bit of time to write it. Hopefully this video helps you. I think it's pretty straightforward. But if you have questions, let me know, and hopefully I can help you with that. So that's the introduction section. The next section up will be the method section, which will be much easier. The introduction section is a little bit trickier and takes a little more effort to write. So I look forward to reading your submissions. If you're going to submit, where do we submit? Let's get rid of some of this stuff here. So if we're going to submit, let's go back to BMCC. Let's go into the course. So under written assignments, so go to content. Under written assignments, that's where all the manuscript assignments will be at. So you'll see this thing that says introduction. Please submit as a PDF. So you're going to save your document as a PDF file. You're going to then go into introduction. You're going to upload it as a PDF file. And then I will get that online and I will give you comments. And then you will see those comments and then you will make the necessary corrections and changes for the final paper. And if you do that throughout the course, then at the end of the semester, you're pretty much done. So if you've made the changes throughout the semester, you won't have to kill yourself at the end to make all the changes. So that's what I suggest, is make the changes as you go along throughout the semester. And then at the end, you have your revised manuscript and you can submit the final paper, which is all the way at the bottom, revised final paper. The whole manuscript. I will write the results section for you. Everything else you're going to write. And that's it. So hopefully that's helpful. If you have any questions, let me know. And I'll see you online for future videos this semester.